Imagine a town that time forgot, not one abandoned due to economic hardship, but one erased from the map, buried by tall tales and fear over a century ago. This place is Whispering Creek. It was once a bustling hub, a magnet for fortune seekers with a lust for riches, only become a grim reminder of greed and forgotten tragedies. People say Whispering Creek died from a calamity, but history has a way of being rewritten. My name is Elijah Reed. I'm a historian, and mysteries like this are my business. I'm not looking for gold. I'm looking for the truth. I've scoured dusty archives, and the story of Whispering Creek always ended the same way, until I found something that changed everything. In a rotting wooden box, forgotten in the back of a small antique shop in Nevada, I found an old leather journal. It belonged to a miner named Jonah. The pages were yellowed, almost illegible. Most of it was routine stuff, the long days spent chiseling away in the dark. But then Jonah's tone shifted. His entries went from matter-of-fact to frantic scrawls. He hinted at a discovery that wasn't gold, but something more valuable and more dangerous. He wrote of a major falling out, of an accident that wasn't an accident, but an intentional act. He said they buried not just a mine, but the truth. Those words called to me. They contradicted every historical record I had ever read. A secret was buried, a secret that could only be found where it was forgotten. I had to go to Whispering Creek. I arrived at Whispering Creek at dusk, when the last remnants of sunlight were just enough to expose its grim state. The rotting log cabins, the decaying wagons buried in dust, all told a story of an abrupt end. I began my search, following the breadcrumbs Jonah had left behind. His notes were cryptic, not just simple directions. Jonah wrote in riddles. Where the ravens cried, the sun died, and the point of death where shadow met sun. I spent my entire first day just trying to make sense of them. It turned out that ravens were the wooden beams supporting the mine, and the sun died was a collapsed mine shaft where light couldn't reach. Piece by piece, I put the puzzle together, leading me to specific locations. At a rickety lean-to, I found a small box hidden beneath the floorboards. Inside was a faded photograph. It was Jonah, standing with two other men. They weren't miners. They wore expensive clothes, looking like mine owners or investors. Below the photo was a single scrawled word, the lie. I moved on to a dilapidated cellar. Jonah had written about this place, where he buried his hope. I dug through thick dust and found a small iron chest. Inside wasn't gold, just more fragmented journal pages. This time, Jonah's writing was rushed, almost frantic. He wrote about an, or that wasn't gold, but a glittering black stuff, a power from deep within the earth. I recognized it as a raw uranium, or something that would only be valuable later on. It seemed the miners had stumbled upon it by accident, but its true value was concealed by a powerful figure. As I was about to find the mine's entrance, I heard a sound. An old pickup truck pulled up and a group of men got out. Leading them was an elderly woman with a determined look in her eyes. She introduced herself as Abigail, the granddaughter of one of the deceased miners. She knew who I was. "You're the historian who came to write about the treasure," she said, her voice filled with suspicion. "We've been searching for it our whole lives." I tried to explain that I wasn't looking for gold, but they wouldn't believe me. They were convinced the treasure was waiting for them, and I was an intruder. We became adversaries, a silent race. I used my knowledge to find the secret paths Jonah had documented, while they used their instincts and local knowledge. I evaded them, going deeper into the mountains. Finally, I reached a large cliffside that Jonah had described as where the souls rest. Behind a massive boulder, I found a narrow, almost hidden entrance. It was a secret path Jonah had built. I squeezed through the entrance, and the world inside was completely different. The air was cold, silent. smelling of earth and time. I followed the path, stepping over puddles and large rocks. Eventually, I came to a final chamber. There, I found Jonah's remains, sitting propped up against a rock wall. He was holding a small wooden chest in his hands. I opened the chest. There was no gold, no treasure, just a stack of letters and a will. It was Jonah's final testament. I sat down next to Jonah, opening the letters. They were addressed to his wife and daughter, but were never sent. In the letters, Jonah recounted the truth. A group of miners, including himself, had discovered a valuable ore. The mine owner, a man named Silas, had promised him a large share, but he was a liar. He tried to claim it all and was willing to kill the miners to cover up his crime. Jonah had escaped but couldn't save the others. He tried to bring the evidence out to get justice, but Silas's greed was too great. Silas deliberately caused the mine to collapse to bury both the ore and the men, twisting the story into an accident. Jonah had returned, not for gold, but to bury these letters in his will. He wanted the truth to be exposed, for the world to know that the men who died were not victims of calamity, but victims of a crime. He had sacrificed everything to protect the truth. I left the mine, carrying nothing but Jonah's letters. As I came out of the secret entrance, I saw Abigail and her group waiting. Their eyes were both suspicious and desperate. I said nothing. I just handed them the chest. Abigail opened it, and her expression went from curiosity to shock, then to deep sorrow. She started to read, and I saw tears rolling down her cheeks. They didn't find a treasure of gold, but they found something far more valuable: the truth about their lost family members. I had helped them find peace for souls that had been buried for far too long. As I drove away, the ghost town didn't seem so grim anymore. The story of Whispering Creek isn't about gold and loss. It's about buried secrets, about the truth that men gave their lives to protect. And sometimes the most valuable thing we can find isn't wealth, but the truth itself.